Welcome to session 5 of professional development. So let's look at this real quick. You have crafted and compiled the information side of your session, but this week we are going to put it all together and plan and engaging the audience in a way that will convey your message with clarity, but also leave a lasting impact. Because we know that having the best ideas, facts, and information in the world doesn't matter if we can't combine it with speaker craft in a way that delivers it to your audience in an effective manner. So I'm going to give you the tips that we're going to need to do our final project, which is putting it all together and recording a session of actual professional development. So I'm going to give you some tips on delivery today that you can use in order to make your presentation more appealing to those who are in your audience. So step number 1, you're going to have to create something, right? And we want to use visually appealing and informational slides or multimedia elements. And we want to keep the following tips we're going to talk about in mind. First, we want to choose a clean and cohesive design that aligns with our content. Great book called Presentation Zen. You look for ways to use contrasting colors or appropriate fonts. We want it readable. You want consistent formatting. Secondly, you probably want to incorporate visuals such as images, charts, and graphs to convey information effectively. As teachers, you do a lot of this already. You want to ensure that the information that we're using is high quality and relevant. Thirdly, we want to limit the text to just those key points, and we use bullet points for clarity. Very limited text, as little as you can get away with, to use as a visual aid. Add engaging transitions and animation sparingly so that you can enhance understanding and you don't get stuck in the technology part. Lastly, you want to practice simplicity and avoid overcrowding our slides. So less is often more when it comes to creating the actual visual, appealing, and informational part of the presentations. I want to talk a little bit about transitions and flow. As you go from one segment to the other, you want to explain the significance of your transition between different parts of your presentation and your main ideas. So smooth transitions between different parts of a presentation are significant as they help you maintain the flow and coherency of ideas, and they keep the audience engaged. These transitions allow for a seamless progression from one topic or section to another, and they enhance understanding and retention. So you want to make sure to ensure a logical flow and audience engagement. You want to start by establishing a clear structure or outline for your presentation. And you can plant those as signposts with phrases or transition words in order to guide the audience through each point. You can do this through incorporating visual aids such as images or diagrams or the words that you choose in order to support your idea. So next, I want to give you some thoughts about audience interaction and engagement. Engaging the audience throughout a presentation is crucial for capturing their attention, right? We talked about at the beginning, no good idea can ever be listened to or used or utilized if the audience isn't engaged. So you want to capture their attention, fostering active learning, and create a memorable experience. And when the audience is more engaged, they're more likely to retain that information and find value in the information that you're presenting. So I'm going to talk about a couple strategies to encourage audience participation. And as teachers, we use these all the time in our classrooms. So some of them are pretty obvious, but make sure that you're able to sprinkle these through in your planning steps so that you make sure to use them during your actual presentation. So one thing that we can do is ask questions. We can pose thought-provoking questions, open questions related to the topic to stimulate some critical thinking. So we want to encourage participants to share their thoughts or experiences or opinions, and this creates a dialogue and invites active participation in the idea you're presenting. You can do a poll or a survey. Utilize interactive polling tools or surveys in order to gather real-time feedback from the audience. And this not only encourages engagement, but also provides, with some valuable insight that can be discussed or used to tailor the presentation. You can do small group discussions, so divide the audience into smaller groups and assign them discussion topics or activities. This fosters, collaboration and allows for diverse perspectives, and also promotes active learning. So encourage groups to share their findings or insights with a larger audience. You can do interactive activities, right? Incorporate those type of activities such as case studies, where you give them a circumstance, simulations, role-playing exercises, anything that requires audience involvement. And these hands-on approaches deepens their understanding and enhances their engagement. And then you can also use multimedia elements, right? Make sure they're time appropriate, but elements like videos or visuals or demonstrations in order to complement your presentation. And these help to captivate your audience's attention and provide a multi-sensory experience. But remember, when we talk about this, actively engaging the audience requires creating a welcoming and inclusive environment, things we talked about last week, where participants feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. And by incorporating these strategies, you can enhance audience engagement, promote active learning, and make your presentation more impactful and memorable. The most important thing that I think I find value, and I've seen it used in presentations, are to utilize storytelling techniques. Storytelling is a powerful tool for engaging audiences and making information memorable. As you go through your presentation and create it and the slides that go with it and your speaker notes, one thing I would do is see if you can add a story to every single slide, and you can add or subtract those and curate them afterwards, but make sure that you can add that element, because humans have this natural inclination for narratives, and storytelling taps into that innate fascination, capturing attention, forging emotional connections. I have a couple techniques that I've used myself to incorporate storytelling. One might be to use personal anecdotes. So share personal experiences or anecdotes that relate to the topic or main idea that you're working on. Personal stories add this authenticity, and they create this relatable connection with the audience. Use narratives. So you can craft compelling narratives that illustrate key points or convey a larger message. Structuring this information as a story with a beginning, middle, and an end helps your listeners follow along and remember the content. You can use a case study, so you can present real-life examples that demonstrate the application or impact of the information that you're sharing, showcasing how concepts or solutions have been applied in the real world with scenarios, engages your listeners and helps them grasp the practical relevance. You can emotionally connect, resonance, right? You can incorporate elements that evoked emotions. So you can use humor or empathy or suspense, all those storytelling crafts. Emotionally charged stories are much more likely to be remembered, and they create a lasting impact on the audience. And it creates a safe space where you've opened up with one of those stories. You can also use vivid imagery and descriptions. Using descriptive language and vivid imagery, you can paint that picture in the minds of your listeners, right? So you can engage multiple senses through storytelling, and enhances recall and helps the audience visualize and connect with your content. By weaving storytelling techniques into your presentation, as a speaker, you can create this captivating and memorable experience for the audience and foster that deep understanding and retention of the information that you share. After a presentation, there's usually a time, and especially dependent on your topic, there's a need for having a question and answer session. So managing question and answer sessions effectively is also crucial for engaging with your audience and providing valuable responses. So I have a couple of techniques that you might use for effective Q&A management. One, active listening. So give your full attention to each question, whether you think it's the best question or the worst question in the world. Maintain eye contact with the questioner. Listen carefully to ensure that you understand the question before you respond. This shows not only respect but encourages further engagement. I always summarize questions, especially if it's a larger audience, so that people can hear them. So restate or summarize the question before answering. This helps you ensure clarity and confirms that you've understood the question correctly. It saved me on countless occasions. It also helps, the rest of the audience follow along if the question was not heard by everybody. Concise responses are important too. So provide clear and concise answers that directly address the question. Avoid rambling or going off topic. Break complex information into digestible chunks. So use simple language to enhance the understanding that they had with the question. Thoughtful consideration is important as well. So take a brief moment to gather your thoughts before you respond, especially to complex or challenging questions. And this shows that you value the question and that you're providing a well thought out answer. You want to make sure that you engage during this time with the entire audience. While answering, maintain eye contact with the person who asked, but make sure you glance around at other audience members as well. This is inclusive and it encourages active participation from the entire audience. Finally, be respectful and use a polite tone throughout the Q&A session, even when facing difficult or critical questions. You want to make sure you respond with professionalism and grace, and it helps create this atmosphere for constructive dialogue. And when you use these, you can effectively manage question and answer sessions, and you can also foster, engagement and provide thought-provoking, concise responses that address the interesting questions that your audience had. I'm going to couple things I want to add on to remember, and these aren't necessarily things that you actively plan for, but they are things that you want to practice that fit into the realm of providing a presentation. So the first is body language and the power of body language, and then voice modulation and tone. So when it comes to public speaking, varying your tone and your pitch and your pace can significantly enhance your delivery and engage your audience. So a couple tips related to that. Don't be afraid to express emotion. You can adjust your tone to match the emotions or mood of the message that you're sharing. You can use a warm, enthusiastic tone for positive or inspiring content, while a serious or empathetic tone may be more appropriate for some somber topics. You can convey conviction, so adapt a confident and authoritative tone to convey your belief and expertise in the subject matter. So if you have some things that sound like matter of fact, that might be how you use that. You can inject humor. Remember, you can use a light, playful tone to deliver humorous anecdotes or jokes in order to keep the audience engaged. Think about your pitch as well. When you're emphasizing key points, you can raise your pitch slightly as a way to highlight important ideas or key takeaways. And this helps the audience, draw attention to that crucial information and creates emphasis. You can also vary your pitch range. So you can experiment with different pitch ranges throughout your speech or your presentation. You can use lower pitches for serious or profound moments, and you can use higher pitches to express excitement or enthusiasm. And you can also use inflection, right? Inflect your voice by rising or falling in pitch during sentences. And this adds this cadence or natural intonation that makes your speech not only more engaging, but also more expressive. I'm having a hard time talking about these things while also trying to model them, right? Another thing that you can use when it comes to voice is your pace. You can slow down for impact and use slower pacing during key moments or when delivering important parts is really important. And this gives audience time to absorb your information, and you also create a sense of importance. But you can also speed up for energy, right? You can increase your pace during exciting or energetic parts of your delivery, and this helps create a sense of enthusiasm, and it keeps your audience engaged. But you can also pause for effect, right? You can incorporate deliberate pauses in order to allow for moments of reflection or to emphasize significant statements. Pauses also, create anticipation and add drama to your presentation. But it's important to also keep in mind that you want variety and you want contrast, right? With your body language and your tone, you want to mix it up. So you want to avoid a monotonous delivery of your information by constantly varying your tone, your pitch, your pace through the room, but also your pace in conversation. You want to incorporate a mix of fast and slow, high and low, serious and light moments. And when you're planning out both your stories and the cadence of your conversation, you want to make sure that these ebb and flow. Not so much that, it causes whiplash during your presentation of ideas, but in a way that, creates this nice wave. Make sure also that you're contrasting opposing ideas. So use tone or pitch and pace when you contrast opposing ideas or perspectives. So for example, you might use a firm and assertive tone to present one viewpoint and a softer and more reflective tone for another viewpoint. That'll help the audience follow along. So remember, the key to all this is to be genuine and to be authentic in your delivery and experiment with some of these techniques. Ultimately, you want to find a style that suits your personality and the message that you want to convey, but you want to plan for it and practice it. Practice comes to one of our last ideas: practice and rehearsal and feedback. Practice aloud is something that you want to do. Right? You want to practice your speech, the things we just talked about, aloud, paying attention to your tone, your pitch, your pace, and you want to experiment with different variations and find what feels most natural for you and effective for you. But also, we're in a time crunch on some of these things, so you might be practicing for time as well. Seeking feedback is something that you can also do during this time. So you can ask somebody else to sit in, or if you recorded it, to listen to it, and yourself delivering your information, and you can see what they say. You can get feedback from people that you trust and that you feel comfortable will give you feedback. So they can provide insights on your tone or your pitch or your pace, and they can also help you make necessary adjustments as well. So, this brings us to our homework. You're going to create and record your session. Before you panic, you're going to have the last 2 weeks, so this week and next week, in order to do this. So you'll have plenty of time. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your information you've gathered. You're going to want to add that to whichever way you organized it, and you're going to start creating an artifact. So you can use, document camera and sticky notes. You can use a slideshow. You can use simple pages like I'm using here. Whatever you want in order to record and pace out and write out your sessions. You will probably have two sections of this. You will probably have your visual aids and your speaker notes. Just know that when we go through this process, I do want you to make sure that you are including those things we talked about this week. So I want you to make sure you include stories and anecdotes. I want you to make sure that you plan for questions and you give engagement a thought as you put together your slides and sessions. And even though we're in a digital nature, I want to make sure that it's a session that we'd be prepared to do in person just as well as recording digital. So you're gonna have 2 weeks to do this. It'll be due, at our final end of class. But I want you to make sure that you get to now develop your idea that you started with into a format that's ready to share with people in a way to teach them and to learn and to get them excited about the thing that you decided to chase. So this brings us to our very last thing. Next week, I'm going to talk about things that you can do to support your idea after you've presented it as a session, and things that you can do to keep that idea alive and inside classrooms and talking about it so that it doesn't just stop after that one day of PD session. I'm very excited to see what you put forward in your work this week. I'm going to put up a discussion post to ask questions and ask for feedback. And I will also make a post that will have where you would turn in your final video presentation into as well. Very, very excited. Please reach out if you have any other questions or use the Classroom post in order to ask for suggestions about maybe storytelling or anecdotes or organization or tips of recording and that kind of stuff.